People don't actually have an issue with businesses or even corporations, and today, I think I'm going to prove it to you. Because there is one major, massive issue that is stopping workplace culture, at the very least in the United States, but probably globally, from being significantly better and making your life better in the process too. The stock market.
Thank you for your vote of confidence, and welcome to the Investors Center.
Yeah, that's right. Today, I'm coming for the stock market. To be clear, I'm not a financial advisor. I am not even an expert on the stock market. I barely understand the stock market, so I might get some details of stock market stuff wrong here. But what I do understand is workplace culture, and I've consulted with probably 100 or more companies just in the last couple years, ranging from nonprofits to employee-owned companies, private enterprises of every shape and size, and even massive Fortune 100 mega corporations. And they all have their challenges. Nonprofit and public sector jobs like teachers and city staff are often squeezed by budget because they're publicly funded, and they're governed by boards that can make it hard to make even tiny changes. I recently saw a municipal authority that had to have their board vote just to give an employee an extra week of vacation to celebrate 25 years of working there. It was just a formality, but they had to do it because they're governed by certain rules and bylaws. That kind of thing can be annoying, but it also ensures transparency with public funds and donations and things like that, which is important. The point being that every organization has its own challenges, but every type of entity has one thing in common that they can do that publicly traded companies on the stock market simply can't do. Publicly traded companies can't just chill.
All right, everyone, chill.
If I own a private company and it's just me, I can reach a certain level of revenue. I can pay my employees well. I can keep a nice little profit for myself, and I can call it good. And then we can keep doing that every year. We do about the same amount of work, everyone gets paid well, and we all win. Publicly traded companies can't do that. Well, I mean, they could, but they don't because they kind of can't. And the reason they can't chill is because the entire economy is built on the single principle that the stock market number will keep going up. You can go watch any finance YouTuber and they'll probably tell you that you can invest in a fund that tracks the S&P 500 and you will average a 7 to 10% return annually. But that only works if the S&P 500 goes up 7 to 10% annually on average. And if the numbers start not going up, or heaven forbid start going down, then everyone starts selling your stock, and then it goes down more, and then nobody gets their dividends, so they sell more because everyone starts to panic, which makes the shareholders and the board very upset because they are heavily invested in your company, and also because the board is elected by the shareholders. And so the shares going down costs them a ton of money, and the doom spiral could then end up costing them their positions, which costs them even more money. And if you're the CEO of a big company making millions of dollars every year to keep it successful, what your job actually is to keep the board happy. They're the real boss. Theoretically, you keep the board happy by keeping the shareholders happy, because if you do a bad job and make number go down, the board can fire you, and then no more millions of dollars in salary for you as the CEO. So then you pressure your C-suite and your directors to make number go up. We need more profit, we need more revenue, we need more potential, we need more opportunities. We need cool and exciting products, and the best customer service, and the best everything ever. But also we need to cut expenses so that profit goes up. And you know what the single biggest expense is for most companies? People. And not just salaries, but benefits, insurance, payroll taxes. For almost every company, payroll is the single biggest expense. For some of them, it makes up 70 or more % of their total expenses. So what do we do if we need to meet quarterly targets to make number go up so the economy keeps working and also we keep making our sweet, sweet CEO salary? Layoffs! Layoffs will help. Or maybe just when someone retires or quits, we don't replace them, and we stretch the people that we already have to make up the extra work, because that's one less salary and one less package of benefits that we have to pay. But this is a short-term solution, because turnover and replacing people is also one of the biggest expenses that a company has to deal with. With all the costs associated with finding and hiring and training a new employee, it depends on the role, but it can cost between 1 and 3 times their salary to replace a person. So if you ever have to hire any of those laid off positions back, you've wasted a ton of money in the long term. And leaders know that turnover is expensive. That's why people like me exist. Shockingly, you'll look at my numbers, I'm not making my money from YouTube.
It's alright.
I make it from speaking and training and consulting with companies on how to make a better work culture where people are happy and actually want to be. One major reason it's a worthwhile investment for my client is because if my work saves just one person from turning over, it's already paid for itself. But turnover is expensive later. Burnout is expensive later. Those are expenses that are aggregated and build up and compound over time. But they're almost invisible in the moment. They aren't always easily tracked or allocated, and sometimes they're just chalked up to a cost of doing business. Whereas the expenses that come from giving people raises, or a lot more time off, or bonuses, or benefits are all things that are very clearly visible and easily trackable, and you see them pretty quickly. If you give everyone in a company $1,000 a year raise, which for a lot of roles isn't much, even on the lower end for many of them, that's going to be 2%, maybe 3%, a smaller raise. But if you have 60,000 employees, suddenly you've just spent $60 million a year. And that feels like a sudden big new expense. And on the other side, the savings and the increase in profit that you see from layoffs or from not replacing someone are immediate. It goes into effect right away, the next payroll. And that lets you submit better quarterly numbers. Number go up. Happy board, happy shareholders. Now, how bad this all is going to depend on your board and your CEO and the economic situation in general. You can get away with some down quarters, especially if you say that you're rebuilding or reinvesting for future opportunities. But you can't ever just be like, you know what? We're good. We employ 500,000 people and have revenue more than the GDP of many small countries, and that's good enough. Let's stop trying to obsessively grow at all costs and instead focus on treating our employees and our customers and the world really well. You can't do that because then number doesn't go up. And everyone's retirement accounts stop growing and the whole system breaks. On the internet, people love to talk about how the big bad evil corporations just want to extract as much value from the worker as possible and leave them as drained husks by the wayside. And that just simply isn't true. I would even argue most of the time. I've worked with so many fantastic organizations that really care about their people, who create meaningful and fulfilling jobs and livelihoods at every level. Shoot, I just worked with a literal dump, like a waste facility, where you can make $50,000 to $60,000 a year or more in a place where the cost of living is not insane, plus benefits and full insurance, including covering co-pays at times for yourself and your entire family, all with no real specialized skills and a high school education. And where I know for a fact that many, if not all of the leaders, legitimately care about the employees' well-being. And that's just one of the many incredible places where I have seen companies investing in their people. But those companies weren't publicly traded. And the high-performing companies on the stock market absolutely do have some incentive to keep trying to extract more and more value. This isn't to say that Fortune 500 company leaders don't care, because many of them absolutely do. Again, I have met them. I have talked with them, I have worked with them. But the difference between them and other types of organization is I will get done with my program. For example, on how to reduce burnout in their organization. And then I'll come to them with the main problems and solutions that I found. I'll present the research and some takeaways, next steps that they can implement. Like, for example, one of them offered really good vacation, a lot of PTO, sometimes unlimited PTO. There were different standards depending on where you worked in the organization, but they had such high quotas for what types of hours you worked and what was billable and applied and all these other terms. And the quota was so high that if you took very much time off, it became nearly impossible to hit the quota. And if you don't hit the quota, then you don't get the bonuses and the raises and the opportunities for advancement. So theoretically, you have all this free time that you can take off. But in practice, you can't really. So then when they came to me and said, how do we make these incredibly intelligent and talented high performers less burned out? I'm like, lower the quota. And the boss who hired me, who is not the CEO of the whole company, was like, yeah, I would really love to lower the quota, but I just don't think the higher ups are going to go for that. Why? Because they're worried about their stock price. They needed to hit the quota so that number would go up. Meanwhile, they are on the verge of losing some of the brightest minds in their industry, people who are not easy to replace, because they are pushing them so hard that they are now miserable doing something that they once loved. And it's so sad. And if you've somehow made it this far into the rant, then you're probably waiting for the part where I solve the problem. But I really don't think I can solve the problem. I will at least give it a try, because it's such a classic case of misaligned incentives. One way to help this problem is if we all would just chill.
All right, everyone, chill.
If we were less flighty about investments and the stock market, that would help some. If people didn't panic sell as much and we could create an environment where you could have some down quarters and for things to level out some now and then, and people didn't freak out and tank your company, like that would help, but that's only part of the issue. The other part of the solution is hard because I don't have all the details and numbers to prove it. But surely.
Don't call me Shirley.
Surely there is room in the budget somewhere to treat people better and still be profitable. There are companies that have done it, quite a few of them, who have treated their employees and their customers really well and still made a lot of money. And honestly, just the turnover math alone should make it make sense. But even beyond that, it's hard to believe that there aren't other expenses that could be cut somewhere. I've seen some of these companies spend ridiculous amounts of money on such frivolous, unnecessary things. Couldn't it go to people and useful, practical things instead? I mean, Amazon makes a lot of money.
Amazon's worth roughly $1 trillion.
I bet it could still make a lot of money if it treated its workers better. And I'm not saying 6-figure salaries for everyone. But let's start with, not pushing them so hard that they literally die. Which is a thing that has happened multiple times. I don't have the math, but I'm sure there's some wiggle room in there somewhere that we could find. And I don't think it's too bold to say that if your business model cannot be profitable without destroying the lives of the people who are building the business, then it isn't a sustainable model. The problem isn't the idea of businesses or of enterprises or even of large corporations. The problem is an all-consuming obsession with short-term number go up. So if you are in a position of leadership at any sort of private enterprise or a public one where you can get away with it, let's try to broaden that vision. Think in the long term, and it will make your work, your community, and the world a much better place. You can book me to come work with your organization at dallincooper.com. And of course, please feel free to indulge my need to watch number go up by liking this video and subscribing to the channel to learn more about culture, communication, personal development.